cry, we laugh. Y'all can mute y'all.
I'm prepared for the comeback, prepared for the day that Yahweh send his son back, the lion and the lamb. The jet black woolly head cat with holes in his hands. I hope you understand. Not everybody banging they drum, part of the band, and everybody claiming real estate, getting part of the land. Except that new wine who got oil in their lamps. The true understanding for those who endured and kept their fruits through the famine. The incandescent for those who kept their fire when the light was in question. I'm here to save them from the things that enslave them. They Instagram getting all the praises they should pay them. The clock running down, they too busy with TikTok until it's a wrap. Now they bodies in a Ziploc, my face in the book while they facing the phone. They chasing the look while I'm chasing the throne. Subtle differences from hearers and believers, the students and the teachers, the ones with no vision yet they call themselves leaders. Fake preachers, you can't hide, bro, we see you.
All music ain't righteous music. It's not just about the melody, but the content. Righteous content. Righteous rappers. So what do we like to hear in that type of righteous music? Of course, off the bat, we like to hear scriptures. We like to hear bars. We like to hear lyricalism. We like to hear metaphors.
I hear the streets talking, they saying they want the chef back. They need me in the game like EA and I respect that. I'm shooting like Luka, crossover after the step back. Saying my bars carnal and wicked, I can't accept that. See, I agree with y'all, I shouldn't even be here. Knew my Miranda rights before I knew the Lord's Prayer. Minute out the murder capital, killers covered in tears, I gotta sit with them. Y'all too clean to get in the chair, I gotta build with them. Y'all holy field can't give in there, cause if I don't, then I know that them crackers gon' give them years. Can I live? I know the real rights, bro, they understand me. I'm more Ray than Bobby Flay or Gordon Ramsay. That's why I'm never at they shows, bro, they wanna ban me. Thought we was bros, how that go? We supposed to be family. Now fam, you made it clear, it's all business. Want you win, but not more than them. I think I get it, won't you shine without showing your gems? Dude's different. Oh damn it, he gone flaming. Rapping like he lacking basic factors of home training. That brew blood banging all through his veins, fringes border his raiment. We're framing hitting off with his head, we gotta find her with Brainy and Manny went. John the Baptist with no practice. Find me in the field with free game to all these captives. Find me in the field, garment strapped cause I been active. I find them in their fields, how you mad because he captured the heart of the mass. From all his classics, not the boring ass classes. I've been a light you couldn't hide, trying to cover the flashes. Now every time I hit the booth, I leave it covered in ashes. What you expect, our money made me some modern day cashes.
We like to hear wordplay. What else? Energy, wittiness, delivery. You know what? I only got one person in mind that hold this down. Ro the Chef. Y'all better tap in. Ro the Chef is creating a whole new wave, whole new sound. Oh my goodness, y'all ain't ready for this. Ro the Chef.
When you first met K-12, our commitment was to help you get where you want to be. With K-12 Power Schools, your future is yours to create. Congratulations, graduate.
It's everything you wished for. Your site traffic is skyrocketing. Until this. Hallelujah. They tell us Jesus died at 33. No, it's funny, that's the highest degree in masonry. They put subliminals in the word to confound the reader. That's why we need the Holy Spirit to interpret things. The lion pen of the scribes handle the scriptures falsely. Jeremiah 8:8, deception is costly. Yahusha Hamashiach, son of the living God. Hair like Basquiat, divine toast and wine from his soul. No private stop. His death was the cost of our transgression. Church put us on, but something off about that man complexion. I had to let go of the scholars and do some introspection. Truth trumps the devil's gospel and causes insurrection. Don't make us violent. That's the image of a sodomite killer. Don't keep us silent. Ain't when it's tribe to identify with them. So you washed them. Caesarea, Borgia, be a pure demon. Get behind me, devil, like the Messiah addressing Peter. Yah's glory gon' fall in Lebanon upon the cedars. They turned Yasharel into thugs and divas. Gave us male idols to worship with feminine features. A spiritual degree surpass a collegiate. lion gonna arrive with unlimited ether and put Zion on his back, Jehoshaphat season. Yeah, everything gon' crash, everything gon' crash. 400 plus years, we finally free at last. I did enough years sober, it's time for me to spaz. Drunk in the spirit, only ice left in my glass. Don't put no glory on my name, it ain't no fame. I'm trying to collect, forget my story, I did my thing. But without the king, it ain't nothing left. Baptized by fire, we the Kadesh. Sitting in flames ever since he left. If he the tree, I'm in the nest. Put me a check, know I'm blessed. I confess when I make a mess. Wearing that word around my neck. We here to serve, we the elect. Only thing I'm smoking is this flesh.
We have to go to the cause. Dealing with the condition itself is not enough. And it is because of our effort towards getting straight to the root that people oftentimes think we are dealing in chaos.
I give honor to Hamashiach, Son of the Most High, the living word of the Father who is one with the Father at his right hand, close by. No love for that wicked graven image that is seared in our minds by the powers that be. Some of y'all close your eyes to pray, and when you do, that's who you see. Thou shalt not have no other gods. Shake nothing from the earth or from heaven or the sea. That's idol worship, and that's on purpose. Beloved, please allow the truth to set you free.
All right. Can y'all hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. You gotta turn your music off, babe. So Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Now we from last week we did the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Jerusalem Church Connection Part 1. This week we did 2. I didn't mean for Part 1 to be so long, but for those who didn't see Part 1, check out Part 1 because we brought out some very good information on there showing the connection with the Dead Sea Scrolls and the New Testament. All right, so now we're dealing with Part 2. Part 2. Now we shouldn't be long, shouldn't take too long. So with Part 2, we're going to be dealing with the land of Damascus according to the Dead Sea Scrolls. What does the Damascus mean according to the Dead Sea Scrolls? So we're going to go into the Damascus document, which is found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. And also it was the Zedekiah fragment is a Damascus document, which is the same thing as the Damascus document, which was found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's the same thing, letting you know that this document was passed around to different communities of the same understanding when it comes to this Messianic understanding, because you had, according to Philo, a first century, what would you call him? A first century theological philosopher, a Jewish philosopher. He writes about the Essenes being in Egypt. He writes his take on the Essenes and what his take is on them, what he seated them in Egypt. But it was the Zedekiah fragment was found in Egypt in the early 1900s. Well, yeah, mid 1900s. And then that same document was found in the Dead Sea Scrolls in 1947, around 1948. So we're going to check this out. So we're going to go to the Dead Sea Scrolls. We're going to talk about Damascus. We're going to talk about the New Covenant. We're going to talk about the Holy Spirit. Pour is in there. What we're going to read. We're going to talk about grace is in there. We're going to talk about baptism. All this stuff is located in there. I want to read this real quick. This is Luke chapter 22, verse 19 through 20. And he took his bread and gave thanks and brake it and gave unto them, saying, this is my body, which is given for you. This do in remembrance of me. Likewise, also the cup after supper, saying, this cup is the New Testament in my blood, which is shed for you. Blood in Hebrew is H1818. H1818. which is dam, and then cup in Hebrew is H3563, which is mas. Okay, so Damascus. The word Damascus itself, according to the Dead Sea Scrolls, just mean new covenant. All right, it just means new covenant. So I'm showing that connection with Luke and the other gospels have Christ recording, saying this cup with this blood is the New Testament, the new covenant. And the word Damascus itself, according to the Dead Sea Scrolls group, it means new covenant, New Testament. All right, so we're gonna check it out. So let's go. We in the complete Dead Sea Scrolls for brothers and sisters. Get the Giza Vermis edition, the 11th edition. Let's go to. We're gonna go to page 133. All right, so 133. You there, Tazalak? And we're gonna have to get it in. So
Tell me the chapter so I can find it in mine.
all right. The chapter, it's in the Damascus document. Go to the Damascus document.
Okay. Yeah, that's in 125 in mine. All right, I'm ready.
All right, then go to specifically, I don't know what it's gonna be in your book, but
Once we find it, it's in order.
it's chapters is column 20, but it's I don't know if it's in your book that way, but it start right here. You will see something to say the will is the law. So you will see it, the will is the law. You will start right there. It may be like, I think it's maybe a couple pages into the Damascus document.
All right, I'm gonna just read it from there.
You can see it.
Yeah, I see it. The well is the law, and those who dug it were the converts of Israel, who went out of the land of Judah to sojourn in the land of Damascus. God called them all princes because they sought him, and their renown was disputed by no man. The stave is the interpreter of the law, of whom Isaiah said, he makes a tool for his work. And the nobles of the people are those who come to dig the well with the staves with which the stave ordained that they should walk in all the age of wickedness. And without them, they shall find nothing until he comes who shall teach righteousness at the end of days.
So as you can see, that they saying that, for those children of Israel, for those who want to follow the law, they left out the land of Judah and they sojourned in the land of Damascus, in the land of the new covenant. All right, they deserve in this operation called New Covenant. All right. So keep going, bro. None
of those brought into the covenant shall enter the temple to light his altar in vain. They shall bar the door, for as much as God said, whom among you will bar its door? And you shall not light my altar in vain. They shall take care to act according to the exact interpretation of the law during the age of wickedness. They shall separate from the sons of the pit and shall keep away from the unclean riches of wickedness acquired by vow or anathema, or from the temple treasure. They shall not rob the poor of his people to make of widows their prey and of the fatherless their victim. They shall distinguish between clean and unclean and shall proclaim the difference between holy and profane. They shall keep the Sabbath day according to its exact interpretation, and the feast and the day of fasting according to the finding of the members of the new covenant in the land of Damascus. They shall set aside the holy things according to the exact teaching concerning them. They shall love each man his brother as himself. They shall succor the poor, the needy, and the stranger.
Okay, so this is the church, brothers and sisters. This is the church. Now, this is the new covenant. All right, we're bringing out information, new information. This is the new covenant. Okay, one of the secrets behind the Dead Sea Scrolls that they don't want people to know is that it actually contains the church. It actually contains the Jerusalem church information. All right, so this is the church. They secure the poor. They would not rob the poor of his people. They would secure the poor and the needy. We're just talking about the Ebionites that we went to before. All right, so they would secure that this is what this community would be doing. All right, this is in the new covenant. This is in the New Testament. This is the New Testament. This is the Hebraic New Testament that we're reading, fragments of it, a little bit of it. Keep going, bro.
I scroll up for me. A man shall seek his brother's well-being and shall not sin against his near kin. They shall keep from fornication according to the statute. They shall rebuke each man his brother according to the commandment, and shall bear no rancor from one day to the next. They shall keep apart from every uncleanness according to the statutes relating to each other. And no man shall defile his Holy Spirit, since God has set them apart. For all who walk in these precepts in perfect holiness, according to all the teaching of God, the covenant of God shall be an assurance that they shall live for thousands of generations.
All right, this is prophecy. So this is the community that understand that kingdom to come, that they're building, that kingdom to come with the Messiah ruling, that we're gonna have prolonged lives. Okay, we keep these commandments the correct way. No man should defile his Holy Spirit. This is the church. The New Testament talks about the Holy Spirit. You don't really find it in the Old Testament. You can find some things in the Apocrypha. But when you open up the Dead Sea Scrolls, you have a community that's actually mentioning the Holy Spirit in their writings. This is their writings right here. We're reading the 30% of their writings that was found at the cave. Keep going, bro.
And if they live in camps according to the rules of the land, marrying and begetting children, they shall walk according to the law and according to the statute concerning binding vows, according to the rule of the law, which says, all of those who despise the commandments and statutes shall be rewarded with the retribution of the wicked when God shall visit the land. When the saying shall come to pass, which is written among the words of the prophet Isaiah, son of Amoz.
Okay, so at this community, you got women and children. You say and they live in these camps and the rule of the land, and they have people marrying and things like that. So when you read other sources, first century sources about the Essenes, some people say the Essenes didn't marry. You know, that's one difference from the Essenes from this community at the cave, at the Qumran caves. Now, I believe that these people at the Jerusalem, the church at the caves, was influenced by the Essenes, by the law, because the Essenes was the best. If you want to learn the law, you learn the law from an Essene. Don't learn it from a Pharisee. Don't learn it from a Sadducee. Learn it from an Essene. So yeah, they was influenced for sure by the Essenes, but it's differences between the Essenes and this group at the caves. All right, and all Essenes are not the same.
I said, what's the difference?
Well, you have different sects of Essenes, all right, according to Hippolytus. All right, you got different sects of Essenes. And you have different people like Philo recording Essenes in Egypt, on how he pursue them. Then you got Josephus recording Essenes and how he pursued some Essenes in Jerusalem. Then you have Pliny the Elder. He records some information about Essenes. So is Essenes, that was like a broader term for other sects of Essenes, that stem from the Essenes. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
So it's different sects of Essenes, yeah. The Messianic movement came from a sect of Essenes. So we're gonna keep going. Keep going.
This is what the prophet Isaiah said. He will bring upon you and upon your people and upon your father's house days such as have not come since the day that Ephraim departed from Judah. When the two houses of Israel were divided, Ephraim departed from Judah, and all the apostates were giving up to the sword, or apostates.
Mm-hmm.
But those who held fast escaped to the land of the north. As God said, I will exile the tabernacle of your king and the base of your statues from my tent to Damascus.
Mm-hmm.
The books of the law are the tabernacle of the king. As God said, I will raise up the tabernacle of David, which is fallen. The king is the congregation. And the bases of the statues are the books of the prophets whose saying Israel despised. The star is the interpreter of the law, who shall come to Damascus, as it is written, a star shall come forth out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel. The scepter is the prince of the whole congregation, and when he comes, he shall smite all the children of Seth. At the time,
So at this community, they believe that you will have a Messiah come forth out of Jacob, which is probably, you see that in Numbers. That's in the book of Numbers. All right. And they believe that it's coming from the tabernacles of David. And when that person comes, that star, he's going to have the right interpreter. He's going to be the interpreter of the law. He's going to have the right interpretation of the law. All right. Keep going, bro.
At the time of the former visitation, they were saved, whereas the apostates were given up to the sword. And so shall it be for all the members of his covenant who do not hold steadfastly to these. They shall be visited for the destruction by the hand of Belial. That shall be the day when God will visit. For they shall hope for healing, but he will crush them. They are all of them rebels, for they have not turned from the way of traitors, but have wallowed in the ways of whoredom and wicked wealth. They have taken revenge and borne malice, every man against his brother, and every man has hated his fellow, and every man has sinned against his near kin, and has approached for unchastity, and has acted arrogantly for the sake of riches and gain. And every man has done that which seemed right in his eyes, and chosen the stubbornness of his heart. They have not kept apart from the people, and have willfully rebelled by walking in the ways of the wicked, of whom God said, their wine is the venom of serpents, the cruel poison of asp. The serpents are the kings of the peoples, and their wine is their ways. And the head of asp is the chief of the kings of Greece, who came to wreak vengeance upon them. But all of these things, the builders of the wall and those who daub it with plaster have not understood, because a follower of the wind, one who raised storms and laid down lies, had preached to them against all of whose assembly the anger of God was kindled.
So they got somebody in there, they call him the liar, somebody who teaching lies to the people. Then we're gonna go into information because this part 2 is showing you how Paul chased the Jerusalem church to Damascus. We're gonna show this, but jump down right here, bro. None of these men right here.
All right. None of these men who enter the new covenant in the land of Damascus and who again betray it and depart from the fountain of living waters shall be reckoned with the council of the people or inscribed in his book from the day of the gathering in of the teacher of the community until the coming of the Messiah out of Aaron and Israel.
So this community waiting on the Messiah from Israel and the Messiah out of Aaron. All right. So, and they said, man, you can't enter this covenant without going through water. You and then throughout the community rules and the Damascus document and things like that, you see that one of the things that they have to do is baptism when you enter into the community. Okay. Well, let's see. Start right here. And thus
it be for all among the first and the last who reject precepts, who set idols upon their hearts and walk in the stubbornness of their hearts, they shall have no share in the house of the law. They shall be judged in the same manner as their companions were judged, who deserted to be scoffer. Or who deserted to the scoffer. For they have spoken wrongly against the precepts of righteousness and have despised the covenant and the pact, the new covenant, which they made in the land of Damascus.
mm-hmm.
Neither they nor their kin shall have any part in the house of the law.
Mm-hmm.
From the day of the gathering and of the teacher of the community until the end of all the men of war who deserted to the liar, there shall pass about 40 years.
Mm-hmm. So it's giving you a time stamp. Well, I'm not going to go into deep with that information yet, but this community is set up on the foundation that they've set up on this. This is the new covenant. You come out here, you to get through here, you got to go through baptism. You got to do all this to be a part of this new covenant. You know what I'm saying? It's real similar to the early church. It's real similar to the early church. So yeah, we're gonna stop right there. So we're gonna jump back to the. All right, so boom, and we did it mentioned grace in there, so I think we probably read over it, but it mentioned grace in there. It talks about the time of grace and all of that in there. It's very important to show that I'm showing that connection. All right, so Saul or Paul chases the Jerusalem church to Damascus. Can you read Acts chapter 8, verse 1 for me right here, bro?
And Saul was, Acts chapter 8, verse 1, and Saul was consenting unto his death. And at that time, there was a great persecution against the church, which was at Jerusalem, and they were all scattered abroad throughout the regions of Judea and Samaria, except the apostles.
So the footnote in the Acts of the Ebionite Nazarenes, we're gonna go into it. It explains more this detail. We're gonna read it in a second. But read Acts 9, verse 1 through 3 for me. All
right, Acts 9, verse 1 through 3. And Saul, yet breathing out threatenings and slaughter against the disciples of the Lord, went unto the high priest and desired of him letters to Damascus to the synagogues, that if he found any of this way, whether they were men or women, he might bring them bound unto Jerusalem. And as he journeyed, he came near Damascus, and suddenly there shined round about him a light from heaven.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was converts in Syria. We had some converts in Syria, but the author asked, I think they're trying to throw it off, but because this Damascus, this Damascus, it's all throughout the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's all throughout the Dead Sea Scrolls. So, but we're going to read something in the recognitions of Clement, which is the Acts of the Ebionites or the Nazarenes. So we're gonna remember Acts chapter 9, verse 1-3. We're gonna remember that it was letters that he had letters to go down to a place called Damascus, and he to go down there to take these Christians and bring them down to Jerusalem to be locked up. All right, so that's according to Acts. So now the recognitions of Clement, just a little background of it. This is Ebionite content. All right, can you read this for me, bro? This is from scholar Fred Lapham.
The recognitions of Clement, background, Ebionite content. Scholar Fred Lapham notes a substantial part of the first book of our,
which is recognitions.
Recognitions 1.
Book 1, yeah, book 1, chapter 27.
Book 1, chapter 27 through 71 differs from the form and content of the rest of the work. This part of recognitions consists of 3 distinct words added to the recognition, either by the compiler or a later editor. These works have been labeled by more recent scholars as follows. First comes an account of the creation and the history of Israel down to the coming of Christ. Book 1, chapter 27 through 42. In the car. Okay. Next is the treatise, which deal with the question whether Jesus should be understood as the eternal Christ and discusses his priestly and salvatory role. Book 1, 44 through 52. Last is a section which many have believed to correspond to the ascents of James, cited by Epiphanius of Salamis, book 1, 53 through 71. If these scholars are correct, then this section would express a form of Ebionite beliefs.
So definitely the book 1 of Recognitions of Clement, you know, some of them stories does date back to the early church. All right. So the Recognitions of Clement, other names for it is the Travels of Peter, the Ascents of James, the Acts of the Ebionite Nazarenes. These are other names of it other than the Recognitions of Clement. Because in this Recognitions of Clement, it was compiled with different things that the Jewish Christians kept, like some of the Travels of Peter, the things about James and what some of the things he taught, and the organizing that he was doing with the Jerusalem church as bishop. And this stuff can be verified through church historians in the early 3rd and 4th century, verifying this stuff, and in the 2nd century. All right, so what we're going to do is archaeology. Hold on, we're going to go to the Recognitions of Clement before I go to the archaeology. That's the last thing. So we're going to go to, this is the Syriac version of the Recognitions of Clement, okay? The Syriac version. We're going to read book 1, chapter 65 through 73. We're going to get a full detailed account of what took place of what we just read in Acts. All right, so I'm going to reread this. Acts chapter 9, verse 1-3. And Saul, yet breathing out threatenings and slaughtering against the disciples of the Lord, went unto the high priest and desired of him letters to Damascus, to the synagogues, that if he found any of this way, whether they were men or women, he might bring them bound unto Jerusalem. And he journeyed, and he came near Damascus, and suddenly there shined a light from heaven. So when he was about to persecute the church, that's when he, whatever happened, he received his revelation, while he was going to persecute the church. So now the Syriac Clementine, doing the Syriac version, this is one of the oldest versions we have of the Clementine, the Recognitions of Clement. Now, some of this stuff is, now we do have some older fragments that's in Hebrew, but they're very fragmentary. The Syriac version is the largest book form that we have. All right, so let me go down to it. All right, so we're gonna start we in book 1, we're gonna start at chapter 65. So we're gonna get a detailed account of what took place. All right, so 1 second. So yeah, all right, so can you start right here at chapter 65, bro?
And recognitions, is that chapter or chapter
Yeah,
1?
it's
verse
book
65?
1. Yeah, book 1, chapter 65.
All right. And after I said these things, all the multitude of the priests cried out because I spoke openly about the destruction of the temple. And then after Gamaliel, a chief of the people, who for the sake of assistance was secretly a brother of ours in the cause of the faith, had understood that they were increasingly gnashing their teeth, filled with intense wrath against us. He said these things, desist and silence yourselves, O people, sons of Israel. For who do not know what this trial is that stands over us? Wherefore, let go of these men, and if this is an affair of human beings, it shall cease. If then it is from God, for what do you vainly sin while you cannot do anything? For the will of God always ought to overcome anything. And now, because the day has passed by today, tomorrow I will speak with them here before you so as to reprove their word of error. They then, after gnashing their teeth and being filled with anger and wrath, became silent in the hope that on the morrow we would be reproved in error before all of them. He then promised this to them and peacefully dismissed the crowd.
All right, so now before this chapter, you had chapters before, the 12 disciples with Clement. They was in the temple, and each disciple was given their dispute. They were disputing with some followers of John the Baptist who didn't follow, who felt like John the Baptist was the Messiah. You had them disputing with Sadducees. You had them disputing with Pharisees, within the temple. And then Gamal, he comes up and be like, all right, he speaks and be like, look, man, we're going to come back and we're going to revisit this tomorrow, all right? You know what I'm saying? We're going to come back and we're going to prove these disciples of Jesus of Nazareth. We're going to prove these apostles. We're going to prove them wrong. Let's come back tomorrow. So, all right, now we're going on. Finish. Let's go to the story. Keep going.
Recognitions, book 1, chapter 66. And we then came and told James the things that were said. And after speaking with him, we received food, and all of us passed the night with him. All night we were praying that on the next day in the disputation, the cause of our truth would take hold and overcome. And then on the following day, even James the bishop went up with our multitude to the temple. We also found there a great crowd that was waiting for us. And when all of us stood in the places of the day before, so that by being in elevated places, we could be seen by everyone, after there was a great silence. Gamaliel, who I formerly mentioned for the sake of secret assistance, was our brother, for they greatly retained the counsel of such as their associates, was therefore secretly keeping himself so that when they schemed anything against us, we might know these things and thrust them away from us. And he, by a suitable counsel, might even peacefully change those against us by intercession. However, he wisely spoke first as if he were our enemy, but it was planned by means of his occasion to persuade the people in the love of truth to hear the words spoken. And he looked at James, the bishop, and began with his speech after this manner.
Mm-hmm. So Gamaliel, he actually was a brother of the disciples on the low, and he didn't want the Sadducees, he didn't want the Sanhedrin to come against them. So because he understood, and as we can read in Acts, Gamaliel, he's the one that stands up and say, brothers, among Israel, if these people are, I'm paraphrasing, if these people are of the Most High, then if they're not, then what they're doing will come to nothing. All right, he the one that interjected with them in Acts. So you're seeing the correlation between Acts and the recognitions of Clement. All right, so now keep going. We're gonna see.
I just want to pontificate on that a little bit more, because I think that's a lot of wisdom was shown in that specific chapter. As a nation, as believers, as followers of the law, as followers of Christ, we need to understand there's a time for everything. Like, it's not always time to make our position known. And I think that's a good example of it, because, there's always disputes about things of that nature. And there's also, sometimes we shouldn't speak on people and their doings before we really know what the Most High is doing with them. With itching ears and slanderous tongues and backbiting and all those type of things. It's important for us to recognize in that chapter that someone may be for our turn that we may not know, in whatever capacity. They could be in government, they could be in entertainment, they could be in any industry. You know what I'm saying? Because the way that the Most High is going to overthrow this wicked system is with people. So, and everyone's not going to have the same level of understanding. Everybody's not going to have the same level of information, and everybody's not going to be in the same position. But we have to take those things in consideration and not be so quick to speak or judge matters that may be beyond our pay grade, so to speak. And that's like, there's a lot of sayings that go along with that, like, don't let the left hand know what the right hand is doing. Be wise as a serpent, harmless as a dove. You know what I'm saying? Believe none of what you see, half of what you hear. There's several sayings that coincide with we just witnessed. I just want to point that out.
No, right on. Keep going. So Gamel, he about to talk kind of negative, trying to make it seem like he's not, with the disciples, but he's actually agree with the disciples on things. You keep going. All
right. So Recognitions chapter 1, book 1, chapter 67. I, Gamaliel, who am an elder and have renown with teachers on account of truth, am not ashamed to learn from children and idiots a matter peaceable and advantageous for my life. For to those who have a discerning mind, there is nothing more valuable than their soul. And he demonstrated that neither kings nor friends, nor peers, nor fathers, nor any other matter is more valuable than truth. And as if coaxing and urging us, or coercing and urging us on, he said, if you know anything, do not neglect to give it even to our people, because these are your brethren in the word of the fear of God. You should therefore entrust ourselves, O my brethren in the faith, to the love of hearing the truth, so that whatever is lacking, either to us or to you, God may make whole by the means that he wills. And if then already, because of dread of those men among us who without discrimination have prejudiced themselves, you are afraid of their deception and will not speak anything advantageous to us, I openly receive even this cause of yours, and I swear to you by the living God that I will not allow any man to lay hands upon you. While you have these multitudes drawn near, standing witnesses, mediators, oaths, and this pledge given to you as a security without interference, let each person from among you speak that which he has learned, and we in love of the truth will listen.
So the man, like, look, let them hear what they hear what they say. All right, I'm willing to learn from children, from idiots, man, condescending, from idiots. He said idiot. He's trying to open the floor for the disciples to bring forth, their information. All right, keep going. All right.
And after Gamaliel said these things, he had displeased Cephas, and as I suppose, Cephas thought of something in his mind regarding it and accused him so that he could interrogate and question him.
So Caiaphas, being the high priest, he feels some type of way. He like, oh man, like, oh nah, like, you know, keep going.
In a low voice, as if laughing over Gamaliel and James, the chief bishop, he, the chief priest, asked them to make investigation and disputation from the scripture concerning the Messiah, so that we may know whether Jesus truly is the anointed one or not. And James said, we must first inquire whence it is appropriate for us to properly make inquiry. He then, after many things, was constrained by the necessity of propriety and agreed to make disputation from the law.
So James like, all right, because Caiaphas like, you know what? Show me that Christ is show me that Jesus is the Messiah according to the law. James like, all right, first we can do that. I can make a crime before that. You know what? And let me do it. I'm gonna make this disputation from the law. I'm gonna show you it in the law. Let's see. Let's go into it.
But another thing he said though that I thought that James said is, you have to allow us to do it in an orderly manner. Like you're interrogating us in the middle of something that we already had something else going on. So let's set the stage for what we're trying to do right now, and then we'll make time for your inquiries.
Let's do it properly.
Yeah. And thus, in his speech, James even spoke about the prophets and demonstrated that everything they said they had taken from the law, and they had spoken things fulfilling its truth. And thereafter, he even spoke about the book of kingdoms, in what manner, when, and by whom they were written, but also in what manner one ought to use them. And thereafter, they again spoke about the law. And he explained and showed through reason in what manner the things in it exist. And at last, he spoke a word concerning the Messiah, and confirmed by many examples from every side without measure that Jesus is the Messiah, through whom were fulfilled all these things by his lowly coming. Because there are two comings of him, the first lowly, and he came therein. But the second is glorious. Therein he comes and rules over those who believed in him, for they will do all the things he has commanded. And thereafter he convinced the people, while showing that except a person be baptized with life-flowing waters in the glorious threefold invocation, as the true prophet himself showed, there shall be no forgiveness of sins for him, nor shall he enter into the kingdom of God.
Now, I just want to say this. So James, he like, all right, I wish they can let us know what scriptures he was using. But he was showing Christ, he was showing the Messiah he was showing the Hamashiach all through the Old Testament, through and then he put out some other book of Kingdoms. I don't know if this is the book of the Kings. I don't know what he put out. You know what I'm saying? And he let it know, like, you gotta be to do this, he convinced people that they should be getting baptized. You know what I'm saying? It says threefold invocation. I don't believe that was there, you know. But I think they mean the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. But I don't believe that he said the threefold invocations. But let them know you got to get baptized. Like that's for certain, right? Letting them know that. Keep going out.
He demonstrated that all things are the predestination of the self-existent God through the concealment of his existence. And along with these things, he said, therefore, you should not think that we speak of two self-existent ones, or one that is divided, or that one is a female vessel of itself, as the wicked say, a female male. How about that? However, he even talked about the Son in what manner and by whom he is, that he is not without a beginning, and that it cannot now be said of him when it was, for one ought secretly to set aside its existence. He explained many things, even about the advocate and about baptism, and he persuaded all the people with the chief priests during 7 whole days to hasten from that place to go forth and be baptized.
So James doing the work in the temple, he even about to get priests. He about to get some chief priests baptized. But But let's see what happened. Now, this is when Paul comes in. This is when Paul comes in. He's working with Caiaphas. He's working with the chief priest. He, as we read, going back to this, as we read in Acts chapter 9, and Saul, yet breathing out threatenings and slaughtering against the disciples of the Lord, went unto the high priest and desired of him letters to Damascus, to the synagogues, that if he found any of this way, whether they were men or women, he might bring them bound unto Jerusalem. All right, so now we're going to get into what Paul come into the scene, and they call him the enemy. All right, read Recognition, book 1, chapter 7.
And thereafter, one man who was an enemy, along with a few others, went up into the temple next to the altar while shouting and saying, "What are you doing, O men, sons of Israel? How quickly have you been caught up with the poor men?"
With the Ebionite men, with the what? With the what men?
Poor men.
Mm-hmm.
Who have gone astray after sorcerers.
He calling Christ a sorcerer right here before, but he's saying, well, with the poor men, he said, you had quickly been caught up with these poor men, with the Ebionites. All right, keep going, bro.
However, he said things like these, but hearing the contrary of them and being overcome by James the bishop, he started to incite a great riot so that the things well spoken with calmness would be neither proven nor understood and trusted.
So he's trying to cause confusion.
Wherefore, he let loose shouting against the foolishness and effeminacy of the priests, reviling them and saying, "Why are you hesitating, and for what reason then do you not immediately seize all of those with him?" And after he said these things, he first leapt up and snatched a firebrand from the altar and began to beat him. And thereafter, even the remainder of priests who saw him did likewise. But in the great flight that happened, some of them fell upon their friends. Some of them were wounded, and those who died were not a few. For there was much blood pouring out of those who were slain. And then the enemy cast James down from above the steps. But after he fell and became as if dead, he did not beat him a second time.
So it was chaotic in there, and to the point that it was a riot started by the enemy, which is Paul. I'm gonna show you as Paul. It was a riot started, and to the point where some people even got killed. Some people got wounded. James got hit with a glove, and some of this stuff is recorded in Josephus. Matter of fact, some of this stuff is recorded in Hegephes's stuff. Hegephestus was a Nazarene. All right, so this story right here that's recorded in the Recognitions of Clement has some historical value to it. All right, of what took place right here. All right, so let's keep going.
All right. So let me ask you a question. So this is before let's to keep it in context. This is before Saul became Paul. This is when he was still working for the Sanhedrin exclusively.
Yeah.
Didn't get any light or any new understanding yet.
Nope. Yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly.
All right. Okay, Recognitions, book 1, chapter 71. Then after they saw what happened to James, they drew near and took him away, for they were greater than them. However, because of the fear of God, they exceedingly suffered to be killed and not to kill. And while they were more powerful than them, they appeared as lesser because of the fear of God. And then after evening came the priests, shut up the temple, and then went to the house of James. And we prayed there, and before dawn went down to Jericho, accordingly being 5,000 men. And after 3 days, a man came from the brethren and related to us what happened after we were at the temple. For the priests were seeking for him to be among them in all their appointments as a priest, while unaware that he held our same faith.
So even the priests wanted to have James come up, before the enemy came into the temple and caused that disruption, the priest was actually, they're about to get baptized. You know what I'm saying? And in Hegephaestus, the Nazarene, in his fragments of what he's recorded about the church in Jerusalem, he records and said that it's Pharisees, Essenes, and Sadducees up in the church. All right. And they was all underneath James' authority because he was righteous. He was a righteous brother, to the point that the priest wanted to bring him in, like, bro, you got some game. Tell us more about your brother. Tell us more about the right interpretation of the law. Tell us more about this stuff. Keep going, bro.
He told us, therefore, how that man, the enemy, in the presence of the priest, declared to Caiaphas, the chief priest, that he would slaughter all the believers in Christ. He went out to go to Damascus while wearing letters from them, so that after going there, the unbelievers would help him slaughter the believers. He therefore intended first to go there because he supposed that Peter went there. However, after 30 days, he came across us at Jericho. We there buried 2 of our brethren during the night in that place, and of their own accord, their graves are every year whitened all at once, extinguishing the wrath of many, for they knew that they were sons of our faith and worthy of a godly memorial.
So that's Paul, what we just read, that and Saul, in Acts chapter 9, verse 1-3, and Saul, yet breathing all threatenings and slaughter against the disciples of the Lord, went unto the high priest and desired of letters to Damascus, to synagogues, that he found any of this way, whether they were men or women, he bring them bound unto Jerusalem. Right? That's what we see, that enemy that's recorded right here in this story of the recognitions of Clement. That enemy is talking about Paul.
There it says he went out to go to Damascus while bearing letters. So that kind of does quantify that information.
Yeah, man. This the last thing right here.
Story.
Can y'all hear that?
Yes.
All right, here we go.
Story. While James and his followers were on the run from Paul, they made a detour.
Hold on. So before we listen to this real quick. So now archaeology proves the recognitions of Clement to be true. Like some things recorded that have been preserved in the recognitions of Clement is to be true. We're going to watch a video, 3-minute video on archaeology proving what we just read. All right. So let's read. Let's go into it.
Story. While James and his followers were on the run from Paul. Story. While James and his followers were on the run from Paul, they made a detour to visit a monumental tomb very close to Jericho. The tomb housed the remains of 2 brothers, and it had a special characteristic that made it visible for miles around.
The Pseudo-Clementine recognitions say the James community were out of Jericho visiting the tomb or mausoleum of 2 of the brothers that was considered to miraculously whiten of itself every year.
But this is very white. Look at it.
Yeah, well, I know. But the point was,
Robert Eisenman has uncovered what must have been a magnificent and obvious place of veneration. A massive cemetery oriented towards a promontory of brilliant white earth.
This is spectacular. Look at these graves are undisturbed for 2,000 years. Grave after grave after grave after grave. Look at this.
now...
And it's all leading up, you're saying, to that.
Right. This is an absolutely spectacular promontory here. Most people just thought it was a lookout or something, a natural formation of some kind. Nobody realized that there was something there.
This is incredible.
Now we're getting to the most beautiful mother lode of all. Come here, Simcha, and look back at this incredible presentation in front of you of the whole graveyard, all centered on this point here. Look at this. Here we have the remnants of the burial enclosure or mausoleum. There's your view going south. And up to the north here, you have the way to Jericho.
Jericho's right there, right?
No, it's up there about 10 kilometers. And a structure here would have been seen by what? Everybody from miles around, right?
Eisenman students excavated this mausoleum and uncovered a male skeleton that he believes may be the remains of one of the two brothers that James and his followers were venerating while on the run from Paul. The archaeology substantiates the Clementine writings, and that means a Qumran detour saved James and his JC bunch from certain death and bought them enough time for Paul to find Christ.
This is that burial monument sepulcher that we're standing on it, that it's such a magnificent, clearly monumental place, that's where they were, and that's where they went when Paul missed them, right here.
This is mind-boggling. This is a piece of detective work that I think is incredible.
That's the best I can do.
But this remarkable archaeology points to Qumran as an early Judeo-Christian headquarters and some of the Dead Sea Scrolls as the earliest church writings ever found. But the community here was not to last. James was stoned to death in 62, an execution ordered by the high priest in Jerusalem, worried about the growing power of his movement. Eisenman argues that the death of James may have triggered the first Jewish-Roman war that led to the destruction of Qumran in 68. The JC bunch were in trouble. They'd lost their HQ at Qumran, and Jerusalem was besieged by the Romans. To make matters worse, Paul took their guidebook and cut a few rules that would change the religion forever. It was the launch of Christianity. How did Paul do it?
All right. So that's the end of the lesson, brothers and sisters. We're gonna do probably like 2 more parts of these. So much connections. Any questions or comments before we end the live feed?
Yeah, that was a lot of really good information, man. Anybody who's listening, I suggest you do your diligence and, just have an open mind about the information being presented, because we're giving you background information and we're giving you historic archaeological facts. So, there's no need to dispute that type of stuff.
Yeah, man, right on. All praise to the Most High, man. Everybody have a wonderful Sabbath.